You swore to serve both my mother's daughters.
A courtyard in Winterfell, late afternoon light, the sound of steel on steel. Brienne of Tarth is running Podrick through his drills, swinging, correcting, knocking him down when he overextends. It's a routine training session, nothing out of the ordinary. And then a small voice interrupts.
And don't fight someone like her in the first place.
Arya Stark wants to spar with Brienne, the woman who beat the Hound, and what follows is 2 minutes of swordplay that rewrites every relationship on screen, not because of who wins or loses, but because of who's watching. This scene isn't really about Arya fighting Brienne, not at its core. It's about Sansa seeing Arya fight Brienne, and it's about Littlefinger seeing Sansa see it. 2 layers of observation, 2 layers of strategy, 2 layers of fear, and not a single word of it spoken out loud. Everything that matters in this scene happens on people's faces. So, let's start with the fight itself, because it's extraordinary. Brienne goes easy at first. She looks at this small girl with a thin sword and a Valyrian steel dagger and does what any experienced fighter would do. She pulls her punches. She treats it like a friendly lesson. And then Arya starts moving, not like a Westerosi knight, not like a soldier, like water. She dances around Brienne's strikes with a speed and fluidity that shouldn't be possible for someone her size. She finds openings, killing openings, the kind that end fights permanently, over and over again. She uses the water dance training she got from Syrio Forel, blended with the brutal, efficient combat techniques she learned from the Faceless Men. Brienne actually manages to knock Needle clean out of her hand, but Arya doesn't even flinch. She pulls the Valyrian steel dagger from her belt and keeps fighting, the same dagger that Littlefinger gave to Bran earlier that day, the same dagger that was once used in an assassination attempt on Bran's life, and that Bran passed on to Arya because, as he put it, it would be wasted on a cripple. That dagger will eventually end up in the Night King's chest, but right now it's spinning in Arya's hand like it was made for her. And Brienne, one of the most formidable fighters in Westeros, a woman who beat Loras Tyrell in a tournament, and the Hound in single combat, has to stop holding back and fight for real. I mean, think about what we're watching here. This is the same girl who used to chase cats through the alleys of King's Landing, the same girl who couldn't hold a sword properly when Jon first gave her Needle, and now she's matching one of the best warriors alive blow for blow, grinning while she does it. The fight ends in a draw, both women with a blade at the other's throat, and both of them are smiling. For Arya and Brienne, this is pure joy. 2 fighters who've found an equal. 2 women who've earned their skill the hard way and can finally test it against someone worthy. And when Brienne asks the obvious question, "Who taught you how to do that?" Arya's answer is perfect: no one. It's a double-edged reply. On one level, she's referring to Jaqen H'ghar, the faceless man who literally called himself no one. On another level, she's saying something deeper, that she taught herself, that nobody handed her this skill, that she went out into the world and came back self-made, carrying lessons her father never could have taught her. The answer puzzles Brienne, it unsettles Sansa, and it tells the audience everything about who Arya has become. But up on the high walkway, Sansa is not smiling. You see, watch Sansa's face during this fight, because Sophie Turner does something remarkable with nothing but her eyes. At first, there's surprise, maybe even a flicker of pride. That's my sister. But as the fight continues, as Arya's skill becomes undeniable, the expression shifts. The surprise hardens into something else, something colder. And by the time Arya and Brienne finish their match and exchange those grinning, breathless looks of mutual respect, Sansa's face has gone completely flat. Now, here's what's happening underneath that expression, and it's layered in ways the show never explains out loud. First, there's fear, real physical fear. Sansa has just realized that Arya's stories, the kill list, the training, the years of silence, were never childhood fantasies. They were real. Her little sister isn't playing at being dangerous. She is dangerous. She's an assassin. And the girl who left Winterfell as an angry child has come back as something Sansa doesn't fully understand and can't fully control. The thing is, this realization also carries a devastating emotional weight. While Sansa was being a prisoner, first in King's Landing under Cersei and Joffrey, then in Winterfell under Ramsay, Arya was becoming a cold-blooded killer on the other side of the world. They were both being forged in fire, but in completely different furnaces. Sansa learned politics, manipulation, survival through endurance. Arya learned blades, poisons, and the art of wearing other people's faces. They're sisters who grew up in the same house, and now they're strangers who happen to share a name. This is the death of their childhood perception of each other. The Sansa who thought Arya was just a wild little girl is gone. The Arya who thought Sansa was just a silly lady is gone. What's left are two women who have been through things the other can barely imagine, and neither one knows how to bridge that gap, right? And then there's the question of power. Look at the specific moment that changes Sansa's expression.
You swore to serve both my mother's daughters.
It's when Arya reminds Brienne that she swore an oath to serve both of Catelyn Stark's daughters, not just Sansa, both of them. That line lands like a punch, because Brienne's oath to Sansa was a defining moment. It was the first time Sansa had someone pledged to her, the first time she stepped into Catelyn's role, the first time she held real power. And now, Arya is reminding everyone in earshot that Brienne's loyalty must be shared, that Sansa isn't the only Stark daughter with a claim on protection, on respect, on authority. For a woman who has fought her entire life to hold on to what little power she has, that's a threat, even if Arya doesn't mean it as one. Well, and then there's the person standing right next to Sansa on that high walkway, Littlefinger. And if you watch his face during this scene, really watch it, you can see the gears turning in real time. Littlefinger doesn't look impressed by the fight. He doesn't look entertained. He looks like a man doing calculations, because that's exactly what he's doing. He's watching Arya and seeing a wild card, a weapon he can't predict, a player he can't manipulate, a threat to the careful web he's been spinning around Sansa for years. And more importantly, he's watching Sansa's reaction. He sees the fear, he sees the jealousy, he sees the crack forming between the sisters. And in that crack, Littlefinger sees an opportunity. Look, this is the moment that sets up everything Littlefinger does for the rest of the story. He will spend the coming weeks trying to drive a wedge between Sansa and Arya, using the letter Sansa was forced to write to Robb, using whispers, using every tool in his arsenal to turn the sisters against each other. And it all starts here, in this courtyard, watching a sparring match and reading the room better than anyone else in it. Actually, there's another layer of insecurity at work here that's easy to miss. Sansa has been running Winterfell in Jon's absence. She's been making decisions, managing the Northern Lords, handling logistics and politics with genuine skill. Her power is real, but it's quiet. It happens in council chambers and supply rooms. It doesn't have a sound effect. And now here's Arya, whose power is loud and physical and undeniable, whose skill with a blade is something everyone can see and no one can argue with. And suddenly, Sansa's behind-the-scenes achievements feel invisible. There's a jealousy there, even if Sansa would never admit it. Not jealousy of Arya's fighting ability specifically, but jealousy of the fact that Arya's strength is obvious in a way that Sansa's never will be. In a world that values swords over strategy, the warrior will always overshadow the politician, and Sansa knows it. And yet, here's the detail that makes this scene truly brilliant. It also sets the stage for Sansa's distrust. Not distrust of Arya's intentions necessarily, but distrust of the situation. Sansa has learned the hard way that people with dangerous abilities are people who can be turned against you. She survived Cersei. She survived Ramsay. She survived Littlefinger, barely, and now she's looking at her own sister and realizing that she can no longer control or easily protect the person Arya has become. That's terrifying for someone whose entire survival strategy depends on reading people and staying one step ahead. How do you stay one step ahead of an assassin? You know, the scene ends with a silent exchange of looks that tells the entire story. Arya and Brienne share a smile, respect between warriors. Brienne looks up at Sansa on the high walkway and her smile fades, sensing something is wrong. Sansa glances at Littlefinger, then turns and walks away without a word, and Arya looks up and locks eyes with Littlefinger, two predators recognizing each other across a courtyard. No one speaks. No one needs to. The battle lines have been drawn in silence. Basically, this 2-minute sparring match accomplishes more character work than most shows manage in an entire arc. It proves Arya's kill list is real. It fractures the sisterly reunion before it's had a chance to heal. It gives Littlefinger the ammunition he'll use to nearly destroy House Stark from within. And it asks the question that will haunt Sansa for the rest of the show. When your little sister comes home as a complete stranger, do you embrace what she's become, or do you fear it? Technically, Sansa does both. And that tension between love and fear, between pride and jealousy, between family and survival, is what makes the Stark sisters' story one of the most compelling threads in all of Game of Thrones. It started with two girls who couldn't stand each other. It ends with two women who realize that their differences aren't weaknesses, they're weapons. But that realization doesn't come easy. And it starts right here, in this courtyard, with the sound of steel and the silence of a sister who doesn't know what to feel. Again, the fight is beautiful, but it's the faces watching the fight that tell the real story.
Catelyn Stark would be proud.
Earlier that day, Podrick watched the three Stark children walk across the courtyard together, Sansa, Arya, and Bran, and told Brienne she should be proud. Both of Catelyn's daughters are home, alive and safe. Brienne kept her oath, but after this sparring match, safe doesn't mean what it used to mean. Not when one sister runs Winterfell and the other could take it apart with a dagger. Not when the man standing on the high walkway next to Sansa is already planning how to use both of them. The Stark children are reunited, but they've never been further apart.